right, coming up next, we have Banking on CX, easy and fast solutions to increase customer satisfaction and loyalty, and brought to you by one of our industry experts, as well as a sponsor, Amrit Dhangal, the co-founder and chief operating officer for Acquire, again, one of our sponsors. So welcome.
Thank you very much, Jim, for having me.
You bet.
I'll go ahead and share my screen here and kind of run through the presentation. Perfect. Well, first of all, thank you for the introduction, Jim. Yes, my name is Amrit Dhangal, COO and co-founder of Acquire. And firstly, what I would say uniquely positions me to have this conversation today with you all is Acquire has really been in the banking and financial sector since 2016. We're very fortunate to work with some of the largest banks and financial services out there, to even to the smaller ones who are local banks as well. And I'd like to kind of start this presentation off around, from our perspective, what has changed and what we've seen as a company that provides a support tool for customer experience for the financial services and banking. And first of all, what we've seen is, what we hear from our customers is their customers are not coming back to branches as quick as they've opened in some states. I had been listening to the conversation before, and I know there's also been a reduction in physical locations across the US because people are just not coming back to branches as quick as the branches had hoped. A very common one we hear consistently is call volume. There's been an absolute huge increase in call volume, and it's what we expected. We expected people were going to come back to branches. The way they will start communicating is through the phone, and call volumes went up increasingly, especially around the stimulus checks is where we kind of saw the most call volumes increased drastically. Is kind of when the stimulus checks started coming through. Automation. Customers want self-service whenever possible. You may have an FAQ on your site today, but how easy is it to find an answer? And I'd encourage you to try it out for yourself today. How fast can you find your institution's routing number? How can you report a lost or stolen card? If it takes more than 2-3 clicks, you're probably not providing a great experience. When we think about the next evolution of FAQs and knowledge bases, it's really to program them into a virtual assistant and chatbots. Even if it requires the same level of effort and clicks, it feels seamless because the information is served up directly instead of a user having to hunt and peck for the answer. Further yet, many institutions are programming their bots to recognize a logged in customer. Everybody kind of throws the word of personalization. How do we personalize digitally? And one way we figured out that was very helpful for the financial services and banking was the ability to automatically recognize a customer on their website. And since they can recognize the customer when they're on the website, it's also to give them the exact information they were looking for. For example, account balance, their account number, and so on. And banks who provide this level of support on their website and their mobile apps are definitely far outperforming their peers in terms of satisfaction and how they digitally communicate with their customers. We have seen both sides of this story. We have been in a position where we've had banks come to us who did not really invest in any digital channels prior to 2020, who drastically wanted to invest. And we kind of saw the other side where we had customers, buying our tool back in 2017, 2018, really seeing digital and customer experience as the way forward. And in the end, this all adds up to how financial services and banks maintain their customer experience from a distance. We have been so accustomed to people walking to branches to provide a positive customer experience. It's very challenging to almost immediately do it from such a large distance. The customer experience battle was already coming, especially from our perspective. Traditional in-person banking has been unfortunately declining for the last decade as customers went online to manage their accounts. And even in 2017, desktop online banking began to take a nosedive. Mobile banking is very evidently the preferred channel of choice, and the experience has had a huge impact on customer satisfaction. Over the past year, we probably know one person who's probably shifted to online banking. I know my parents have, after going to the branches for about 20, 30 years. COVID has only increased the customer experience demand. Last year, there was no choosing how you managed your bank accounts. It had to be done online. Institutions who already invested in online and mobile banking were at a huge advantage. And I want to give you some insights into why. I mentioned before, and you may have experienced this yourself as well. Call center volume was off the charts and still remains higher than previous years. You simply can't imagine the volume without deflecting customers to digital channels, especially for simple inquiries like, where is my stimulus check? What is my account balance? What is my routing number? Which has nothing to do with your actual, especially in terms of the stimulus checks, which have nothing to do with banking services and zero control over. A lot of the financial services we've spoken to recently saw the highest call volume increase, once again, as mentioned, during stimulus checks. And they had told us continuously, we don't have anything to do with stimulus checks, and we want to be able to kind of manage this better. Like, how can we at least automate some of this or deflect some of these questions? The solution. This means recreating every aspect of the in-person banking experience online. Not just putting your mobile app in the store and letting customers do it all themselves, but great digital experience require planning and personalization. We feel great CX is imperative. Today, customer experience in the financial services is a very hot topic and has been for a few years. These stats speak directly to the integrated customer experiences your customers are expecting at this point in time, regardless of whether they call in, email a loan officer, or even use a chatbot to check their balance. We had a few companies where it just became very important for them to kind of start automating the inquiries because the call volume got way too high. You can see 78% of consumers expect a consistent experience wherever they engage with Salesforce. 51% of banks reported improving the customer experience as their priority this year. And 28% of executives rate delivering frictionless experiences at every touch point as a top area of improvement. I'm hoping that the audience today resonates with at least one of these points today. Expectations of a frictionless experience are centered around three themes. Can I do it myself without talking to a person? One thing that we get challenged with personalization is in person, but there has been a drastic increase in customers like ourselves who wanted to resolve things without having to talk to somebody, because then we can do it on the go. We can do it on our phones. We can sit here doing it on our sofas on the way out as well. Can I get things done wherever I am? Will my Facebook message continue over to the bank's live chat? Can I avoid dedicating 30 minutes of my day to resolving a relatively simple issue? Or can I report it and go on with my day whilst the agent works on my case? Does the bank know who I am? Very common one. Do they understand that I'm an account holder, that I have a home equity loan, and perhaps even use the auto insurance product? Let's dive into these a little bit further. Self-service, can I do it myself? FAQs, knowledge bases, AI assistants, and chatbots, and even advanced IVRs can eliminate a lot of simple inquiries your banks get, such as what's the routing number, lost cards, and so on. The more of these you can offer for customers, the more they can do it themselves and free up agents to manage more complex inquiries. It's a huge advantage, really, for everyone, for both sides. There's been this notion of huge personalization, and then there's been notion of AI and chatbots. And a lot of our customers get in the middle between how do we provide that level of automation and not lose the human experience. And the one thing we would say to that is, if you're using a bot, it's very important that your end customers know that it is a bot. I think a common thing that we hear is we don't want our customers speaking to a bot because they realize it's a bot and they don't like to do that. And I think the common misconception that companies have in that realm is if you tell your customers it's a bot and they know it's a bot, it's a lot more accepted. And people use the bot for basic stuff, for example, routing number and lost cards. But as soon as the bot is unable to answer something, the trick is to really just route it to a live agent. That is something that we have seen consistently in the space. What omnichannel actually means. This is a real example from a financial institution that I won't name here, but they are commended for great CX. And yet here is a customer who was presumably on hold on the phone, reaching out through Facebook and in the chat queue. The bank gets credit for providing plenty of choice for our customers can reach out. But the question here is whether or not the agent who ends up picking up can see all of that on the back end. I will also caveat that in financial services, social media almost always has to be a push to another channel for security reasons. Let's play this out anyway. Customer sends a private message on Facebook detailing their issue. They get an agent on chat, and then need to repeat what they just sent because the agent can't see the Facebook activity. They go back on hold while the agent investigates and continue to get frustrated. They just want their answer. Perhaps now the Facebook agent responds asking for more information. Now 2 agents are working on the same customer for the same issue. Obviously, we can see how this is inefficient for your operations and frustrating for the customer. Something that we have really seen excel over the past 12 months is the ability to have all your customers' communication channels in one place in a single view. Can I see the customer who sent just a Facebook message today that they called us 2 days ago? Can I also see that even though they rang 2 days ago, they sent us an email a week before that? Can I see who spoke to them? Can I see what the customer spoke about? Having context has become really important to how we also now personalize. And that is a key thing in terms of personalization. It's not just the bots having the face-to-face. It's about having context on the customer itself. But of course, being human-centric is very important. We realize that and we accept that. That's a very important thing in financial services. So now we have self-service. We've got omni-channel capabilities. And once again, what about the human element? There are a few ways to create a human-centered experience. One is identifying customers and then using that information during the conversations. For example, hey Amrit, how can I help you today? Another is by implementing video chat. Think about the old days. Maybe when you and your parents frequently went to a local branch, knew all the tellers, got a treat for doing your riding along in the car. This built a certain level of trust and created a strong positive association with your bank. I myself went to the same branch for about 5 years constantly. But now digital banking is the default. You can still create that human connection online through video. If you watch live TV in the US, you may have seen the H&R Block commercials touting the digital tax services and video. Customers want to connect with people managing this very personal part of their lives. And it's really not that difficult to implement if you already leverage some form of digital communication. I'll also touch on here, without getting overly promotional, that co-browsing is a massive advantage for financial institutions. Even if it doesn't get the same bells and whistles from your marketing department as video might, the simple act of being able to show a customer on screen exactly where they need to input certain data while you also speak to them, whether it's through the phone, video, or chat, is great for both the customer and your agents. We have a number of lenders that have seen dramatic increase in the application completions because they have co-browsing. And just for you who just may be learning co-browsing allows your call center agent to see the customer's screen in real time with no downloads. And the most common use cases we've seen that being worked is around application forms, whether it's a credit card application, whether it's a loan application. The ability to take the customer through the application where and when they need support has really increased the conversion rates of how many loan applications or credit card applications the company gets. When it comes to customer experience technology, many institutions are looking for low and no code technology that plugs into your existing tech stack. The challenge with some of these solutions is they offer limited capabilities or create additional silos that increase frustration rather than remove it. That's why when you're looking for when you're looking for CX tech, it's important to evaluate for user authentication, omnichannel capabilities, and integrations. Otherwise, you end up adding more complexity for everybody, which is costing and becoming more time consuming. It's very important to find vendors that combine these capabilities, because the typical pattern that we see is where an institution will invest in different tools as they go down their CX journey. And as you invest in more and more tools, what typically starts happening is you start creating more and more silos. And in the end, the challenge becomes, how do we unify all these channels and all this communication through these 3 or 4 different tools that we have bought to improve our customer experience? I hope this has been helpful for everybody, and I hope I've shared something that has taught you something as well from your side, or at the very least just reconfirmed of maybe what you're seeing in your space or your bank, to kind of give you some reassurance there that it's not just you and it is across the board.
All right. Well, Amrit, thank you for that. Raised a lot of great issues there, and I specifically like how you referenced something actually from the last session, which is there's a perception that you can either build a human experience or you can use AI. And you specifically went after that, saying those two are not contradictory. I think that was really critical. We're in the still, it's definition of how early we are in AI and machine learning, but it's certainly evolving a lot. Do you have thoughts about where that's going?
I think AI, when we think about AI, it's when customers say just AI, it's a very broad term. The highest capable AI, you're looking at your Amazon, Alexas, etc. And I would say, you're spending north of probably $1 million to get those. But when I think about where is AI going, it is where you look at Google's and Amazon today, and that is becoming more commercially available, where even companies like ours can learn from their algorithms. So I think AI is becoming more accessible, and it will become more humanized as it moves forward. Its ability to understand language will improve. And I think in return, that will start compensating for the human element that people are looking for today. That is very hard to get unless you're spending an immense amount of money to develop that, and you have a lot of data to train in that realm. So that's one place. The second place I think AI is going is having more readily available trained data. Because when people invest in AI, it really doesn't work tomorrow. It's not going to work if you want to really have AI. You can't plug and play. But as models are getting smarter and increasing, people have to train less on artificial intelligence to get the outcome they need. And now the conversations we have is, when we're speaking to a company, they invested in, Amazon. They're a huge corporation, but it's taken them like over a year to even kind of get to the place they really want to get to. So I think AI will become more accessible. Time to value will become a lot more faster as well, and it will of course become more humanized. But that is not where we are today for sure.
Okay, Great. And we heard the last time where Amy was saying the last session where she wanted her models to be working on day one, and it didn't work that way. She had to wait a while.
Yeah,
Well,
no, sounds about right.
This might be a little bit outside your expertise, but let me try it. So with the payroll protection program, I applied with my bank, and I've talked to 6, 8 different agents, and I think it was the 5th one who co-browsed with me, which really at that point solved it all. So it's not always a technology issue. Have you seen any best practices on the change management to get your employees to adopt some of these tools?
Great question, and I think we have seen both ends of that stick, where the adoption was low and where adoption was high in the same institution. And I think, and I think, and I remember being there, and there was like 200 call center agents in front of me, and we were kind of training them on co-browser. A few things I would say is, one thing they did right was they did an initial survey on like what would help them the most in terms of the agent. What would help you the most kind of do your job? And the fact that co-browsing and the ability to see their screen came up as I think number 2 on their list. So when we got buy-in, it was in that department and in that function where it was like, we want it. And of course, that's the easiest way when you kind of say we want it. And that's where we got the most adoption. We kind of picked individual people in the call center environment who were, I would say, who had the highest influence, and we worked with them, trained others. We did breakout groups. The thing we did that was very impactful was we kind of pitched co-browse in a way that aligned with how the call center rep is incentivized, performance reviews, how it helps them improve their metrics. Unless they see that benefit, it becomes different. Because I have also been in that scenario where I've walked in the room and said, here's this great thing called co-browse, check it out. It's a feature and it's awesome. And everyone's looking at me thinking, okay, cool. Like, how does that help me? And unless you're answering that question, it becomes challenging to get adoption, to say the least. And I hope that answers your question there, Jim.
Yeah, that was a great answer. Thanks. I appreciate that. We had a question from Alexia, who says, clearly omnichannel is where everybody's going. That's critical there. But what strategies do you suggest to really build the benefits in order to get the investment? Because omnichannel is not free. It takes a lot of coordination between the human and other channels. So how are you seeing what strategies to build those business benefits in order to get the business case?
Sure. So if I'm hearing that question correctly, it's kind of like, how do you almost kind of take it maybe to your senior leadership, build the business case? This is the way things are going. No, one thing I would say is today, there is an immense amount of data out there that supports this is where we are going. I think what we did with one customer internally is we ran an online survey with some of their customers. How would you like to connect with us? And it was their customers telling them how they wanted to connect it. And they literally took that data and they represented it internally as well. I thought that was the first time somebody said that to me. I was like, that's really cool. You're using your own customers to gather data to represent internally. I thought that was a great thing. The other thing I would say is it's very hard for companies, I would say, to go from not being omnichannel to like, we're going to be omnichannel. It's okay to go down the journey, and believe me, it is a journey. We had one company who started off with us just co-browse. Then they invested in chat. Then they invested in the video. Then they put in email. Today we're putting in Facebook and SMS, and they have been our customer for about 3 years now. So it's okay for it to be a journey, because there will be conversations turning around like cost and ROI. So it's okay to start that journey somewhere to at least build the business case, because then that case just becomes easier and easier and easier as time progresses. So effectively, in short, there's a lot of data out there to prove this is where things are going. Try use your own customers if you can, and you don't have to go from 0 to 100. You can take in incremental steps to prove value whilst you're kind of increasing cost to build that case.
Well, let's zero in on that a little bit further. We had a question here about, so if you're an organization which has 0 digital interaction today, so
sure.
what time frame should we go just to as start implementing that first digital interaction as we go, let alone the whole omni-channel, but just to get started?
I would say, from my perspective, I would say immediately. You know, and maybe that's not the best answer, and maybe I can explain why I say immediately. Is, you know, in terms of the market competition and what is going on today, if you're not investing in it, you know, at least your competitors are. I would say getting digital as soon as possible is very quick. We have too many financial institutions coming to us to kind of get digital. I would say that I would encourage you and your organization to really prioritize that. I really think so.
All right. Well, thank you, Amrit. Really appreciate it. You've actually given us a real head start on our next panel, which is fantastic. So I do encourage you to stop by the Acquire booth and learn more about their products and services for you.
Thank you very much, Jim. Enjoy your day, everybody. Bye-bye.